Well, he started to work for my mother and father in 1928 at the store. He used to work on the flume. Down at Poison Switch, there were 2 or 3 houses along the flume there. And I don't know if they told you when you were up at Sugar Pine, did they tell you how they bundled the lumber up and sent it down the flume? Well, they had to have people along the way to watch the lumber, because I remember every once in a while, the flumes were only built out of wood. And a nail would come loose or something, and a board would come up, and it would catch the lumber as it was going down. Maybe the water would it'd spring a leak, and there wouldn't be too much water, and the logs was, the lumber bundles would get down. But whatever happened, if one bundle got caught, you know, it happened to all the rest of them as they were coming along behind, and then they would have a wreck, and it was just like a train wreck, because they'd all go pew, and out of the flume they would go, and they would split apart. The little metal things would come off the ends of them, and lumber would go every which direction, so they had to have men to take care of it along the way. We used to go down and watch them. They had snubbing posts. They were about this big around, and they had rope that was this big around, and when a train of lumber would come along and another train had trouble in front, they'd have to hold it back because they couldn't keep, letting them go. So they would have these hooks, and they would grab it onto the front, and then they'd wrap the rope around one of these snubbing posts, and they'd hold it back. Well, all the water would build up too, and it would splash over the top of the flume, and they'd have sometimes they would have to run up the flume for a mile and catch the next one, because they had phone line going all along the flume, and they would call each other. Like today you would use the radios, but they used the telephone, and they would call, and they would say, they're having trouble somewhere, hold them back. So all along the fellows would have to hold back the trains of lumber so that they wouldn't run into each other until they got things fixed. And of course they would tell them up at Sugar Pine, don't send any more lumber down because we're having all this trouble. And he worked down there until the time when the flume closed. Now the flume from Sugar Pine closed down, did they tell you when? I don't remember. Yeah. Well, after that, they kept the flume open from Ahwahnee down, and there was Grimmett's Logging that had a sawmill and stuff up above Nipnawasi, up in there somewhere over by Jerseydale, and they hauled the lumber down and shipped it down on the flume to Madera from Ahwahnee, and they kept the flume going from there down. And along the river they built, and there's still, you can see it down where they call it Caledonia, where there was a mine going down towards Raymond. Just after you go up around the edge and you look down and see the river down there, they built a dam down there of cement to keep the water so they could pump it up into the flume so they'd have enough water in the flume, because it was getting old and it was leaking a lot, in order to keep enough water in it so that they could get the lumber on down to Madera. I imagine it was the least expensive way to get lumber down there before they had trucks and things.